Hi guys, it's Monday, and that means Jazz Day on Waxing On, and today we're looking at another big band from the 1970s. I mentioned to you when we talked about the Maynard Ferguson Band about seeing an ad in Downbeat. I'm going to try and show it to you here, but it's on a tablet, so I'll try and get it. That's just the picture. Maynard on one side and Don Ellis on the other. Now, what intrigued me was the ad itself. Maynard Ferguson, Don Ellis, they're both cooking. They're both Holton. The music is wild, driving, big, bold, and brassy. And they've got the brass to match the music, all sizzling with action and cooking with excitement. How could you not want to find out what these were about? By this time, I'd already purchased my first Maynard Ferguson album, The Screamin' Blues. And I had a second one, MF Horn 3, which again was more in line with the 1970s big band style. So I was curious to check out what Don Ellis was about. Now, I had no prior knowledge of Don Ellis, so I thought a good place to start was where a lot of rock musicians played, and I'd already bought the Miles Davis at Fillmore, so why not give this one a try? And it's Don Ellis at Fillmore. Recorded in Fillmore West in San Francisco in 1970. It features Don's big band at that time. Now, Don was infamous for trying different time signatures. And I know a lot of people are familiar with Dave Brubeck's, Take 5, written in 5/4. And with our big band, we play Blue Rondo a la Turk, which is written in bars of 9/8, augmented with bars of 4/4. So there's a lot of different time signatures to work with. But Don was a little different, or more different than that. Here's an example, just from one of his other albums. I don't know if you can see that. It says Don Ellis Orchestra, live in 3 2/3 4 time. You don't get a lot of music in that kind of time signature. So that was his thing. A lot of what he did was experimenting with different key signatures, time signatures. And on this album, well, you've got a lot of original material. And one of my favorites on here, one called Pussy Wiggle Stomp, which was a great Don Ellis tune. He also recorded the Beatles' Hey Jude to give people an idea of how they approached a song. Because when they're writing for themselves, people maybe didn't understand just what they were doing. To hear a familiar song like Hey Jude and adapted to the style of what they were playing was really exciting. 2 album set on Columbia and Don Ellis at Fillmore. Now, I followed that one up with another Don Ellis twofer, and it was another live recording done in San Francisco, but not at the Fillmore this time. And it was the album Tears of Joy. Pretty much the same group with him, the same orchestra, except he's augmented it with a string section now. Although the string section is not that lush kind of easy listening strings. It was really interesting what he'd written in there for them, and they really do augment the band in a nice way. Another 2 album set of some great live music and a chance to hear what he was really all about in the early 70s. Now, unfortunately, his next album was one called Connections. And it was kind of surprising because it was produced by Tio Macero, who I've talked about earlier with Maynard, did a great job on his Maynard MF Horn 4 and 5 live at Jimmy's and on Chameleon, and he was a great producer with Miles Davis. But on this album with Don Ellis, everything just seemed off the mark. It was all popular tunes. There was not a lot of originals. It really wasn't what Don Ellis had been doing up until that time. Now, around the same time, he'd actually won an Academy Award because he got called to do the soundtrack for the music The French Connection. So if you get a chance or you're watching that movie, give a listen to the soundtrack as well. That was Don Ellis's Academy Award winning score that he did. So the next album, and this one's probably one of my favorites. If you can't find those two, this one really has a lot of great tunes, really shows what the Don Ellis Band was all about. And it was an album called, let's see it there, Soaring. He left Columbia, he was now on BASF, and again, a very familiar photo of Don on the back here that you'll see, and a lot of stuff. Now this one, Don also, I mentioned, played weird time signatures. He was playing a quarter tone trumpet that allowed him to play quarter tones in between the half tones. Like any musicians know, we have tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone is our scale. Well, he had quarter tones in between those as well. So it gave it a whole different kind of sound. He was using electronics, he was using ring modulators, he was doing a lot of stuff that was very experimental in the early 70s. And this album has a lot of great tunes, mainly straight ahead big band stuff, Don playing drums, doing trumpet solos. He did one ballad on here called Image of Maria, which kind of set the tone for his next album. A lot of people maybe weren't really ready for what he was going to do. The next album was one of ballads, and it gave you a different side of Don Ellis. He had a string section with it. It was an album called Haiku, and was really a very laid-back, trumpet-based, string-based album. But if you're looking for something exciting in big band, and certainly 1970s big band, I would recommend taking a look at the Don Ellis Orchestra, live at Fillmore, Tears of Joy, and certainly Soaring. This was, to me, one of my favorites of that era. Okay, thanks for stopping by. We'll be back on Wednesday when it's Rock Day. Hope to see you then. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you on Wednesday.